Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, beautiful creatures of this beautiful planet. Yes, it is League Unlock. Yes, I am Eric. Yes, that is Mark. And yes, we're doing a little bit of global power rankings. 20-1. The flip-flop, swip-swap continues because when there's only 20 teams, that's just how it goes.
You can add in another yes, and that yes is for that there will be yes. Some people will be upset about the list, and yes, some of you will be happy about the list and where your team falls in.
Wouldn't have it any other way.
That's just another week of global power rankings.
Yeah, and as you start, we always like to say, okay, who's getting bumped or who's on the borderline? The most interesting one, and we've already kind of discussed it a little with the LEC rankings that we did. Misfits, despite being 9-4, are the squad that gets bumped this week, even though they went 2-0, and we're going to talk about which team came in that did eventually bounce them out. But Evil Geniuses hold on to that top 20 spot. I'm putting Misfits at 21 right behind them, and people are going to freak out and say, oh my, LCS better than LEC. You guys are insane. What are you talking about? NA's terrible. We're comparing the second best team in NA to the fifth best team in the LEC. That's what we're doing.
Yeah. I really hope that that's immediately apparent to a lot of people, but if that needed to be made clear to everyone else where the standings were, yes, that is very well known. And yes, still, that is where the cutoff needs to be made for this power rankings. Misfits, unfortunately, when you take, everything into account over the last 2 weeks, holding on to a spot like this with the performances that they're putting out, you simply could not keep them in the top 20. And to hold on to a spot is exactly what Evil Geniuses have deserved for themselves and what they've shown, how they play. And yes, make all the, excuses, every type of thing you want about North American games and competition. It's undeniable the way that Evil Geniuses have played, how they're aggressive, what they do around the map, the strategies that they show and seemingly as a team are all on the same page about. That is absolutely top 20 worthy to me.
And Misfits, they're so close. They still have the opportunity, if they put up some good games against some stronger opponents, that they can absolutely, climb as high as 15, maybe even inch towards top 10 if they have a good playoff run. Then you have a couple more EU squads, Mad Lions and G2. Think they're very close. Mad Lions, they've done just enough to get by lately. We don't have the full confidence in them. And G2, similar things. Certainly, even the win against Rogue, even being competitive against Fnatic, I still don't have full confidence back in this squad.
Yeah, that's the penalty, right, for G2 and some of the mistakes and everything else that we have seen from them not go the way that it was expected for the summer split, given this superstar lineup for G2. We see glimpses of it, right? And you see little bits of it from individual players. At times, you get multiple of players on this lineup going in that direction, but it's never been the full five right now for G2. And I think until we see the full five or consistency in this level of performance, then you can really put your full faith and stock back into the G2 lineup.
And for Mad Lions, I want to see them consistently and convincingly beating these lower tier teams in combination with, at the very least, being incredibly competitive with the top of the table in the LEC. 100 Thieves moves down a couple of spots, and here's the thing with being the top dog in NA and any North American team. To be, top 15 or higher, you need to be consistently dominating in the LCS. Haven't seen it as much the last couple of weeks with 100 Thieves, and you combine squads like Suning and T1 improving over the last couple of weeks, and 100 Thieves drop a little.
100 Thieves definitely deserving the drop in the power rankings, and one of the things that I think is really important for the 100 Thieves moving forward and how they can climb back up in these power rankings, as you said, is consistent dominance over North America, of course, and that's an important one in any type of power ranking and moving up especially. But certainly when you're looking at the way the 100 Thieves play and what happens when they're able to get advantages, I think one of the things that, again, has been a consistent criticism is that they seem to stall out at times. They don't know how to exactly put enough pressure on, given some of their advantages or whatnot. And that has come to bite them in the butt. 2 times now we've seen games where they've had advantages and people have said, hey, you're a good team. You want to prove that you're elite. Close this thing out like an elite team does. Put the pedal to the metal. and they've left the door open too many times. I think that is where people are starting to have their doubts in the actual full-on performance level of 100 Thieves.
And it's fair to have those doubts. I mean, it's only really been this half a split and a bit where we've seen them be this dominant, because they weren't nearly this level in spring. We were a little disappointed. So they don't have this precedent where you can forgive a couple week slump, because it couldn't be a slump. Could just be how they're playing at that point. Then you have Suning ahead of them, who I mentioned, who's put up some big wins lately, taking down LNG and JDG, right there neck and neck with World Elite as kind of that next tier of LPL teams outside of the big favorites. They're kind of that middle playoff team.
Like, again, it never stops being scary talking about the talent that is in the LPL and what is just waiting, because as you said, this is the tip of the iceberg when we're talking about talents in the LPL. My man, there is a whole ocean of talent waiting to talk about still. Yes, everything that has been going right for Suning and WE feels good looking at them in the LPL. Specifically for me, when I'm looking at Suning, I'm thinking about Bin in that top side and what he has been able to do. Him being a power player, being someone that is able to demand and make use of the resources put his way, that is a difference maker for Suning.
And for LNG, it's a big drop for them, but I think that's just kind of reevaluating that they are more in that middle tier Suning World Elite category than that, top esports FPXs of the world, just adjusting them for that. They're still playoff contenders, just they've fallen off from that early pace that they had in the summer split. And T1 are also climbing. They're not in the top 10 yet, Mark. We're pumping the brakes, but up 3 spots. A lot of that, obviously, the win against Damwon.
Yeah, careful growth. Moving up this ladder for T1 and how we manage our expectations and bias for them. Looking at what we have seen from the players, what has been happened, what the changes are to feel this way, you're looking in the jungle. And definitely Owner's reappearance for the squad has reinvigorated, and especially the way that his play has continued since stepping in. That's been the big one for us, the consistency in that position to this level and the aggression that has been able to come through and be capitalized upon by the rest of T1. You love what you get to see from this squad.
And remember, it can all change quickly. They play Africa this week. We know what happened last time. They can drop right back down real quick, depending on how the next couple of games go for them. Rogue is stand put at number 11. I mean, for them, it's basically you got to have a tougher schedule really to climb. It was 2-0. Pretty convincing, but you got to beat the top dogs for them to be cracking back into that top 10. Then we get to number 12, Psg Talon. They're back, Mark. They've actually played games in summer. They are why a squad like Misfits got bumped out to 21 this week. 8-0 to start the summer split. Unified is back in for Doggo, and the squad has not missed a beat.
No, they have absolutely not missed a beat. An undefeated type of beat is the type of platoon that is PSG, and what they're playing feels good to have them back into the power ranking situation. They're one that, look, even when they're not in the power rankings, you better believe that they're in the back of our minds, knowing that they are a squad that is of this talent level, and that, again, when you roll up to an international event, you're going to see PSG, and they're going to be there, and they're going to absolutely be a squad that you need to give over respect, need to understand, and need to know, yeah, they're the real deal.
It's such a hard team to rank because obviously the PCS summer split started several weeks later than all these other major regions, but they had such a good performance at MSI, but the competition in the PCS suffers from the same thing as the LCS, which is it's a lot of middle to low tier teams, but PSG's shown they can go against the best in the world, so they're a very difficult team to rank on these lists.
Yeah, and I like that you said, when I mostly look at the PCS, it's very much, as you said, similar to the LCS. I think they actually have an even more significant problem in the sense of being so extremely top heavy as far as talent and everything else with PSG. But at the exact same time, we look at international results, and unfortunately for the LCS, the PCS is doing a little bit better.
One team greater than 3 teams usually for the PCS.
Unfortunately, that's the way it goes. And yes, need to give that respect over to the PCS and PSG Talon specifically.
Yeah, they've looked fantastic through the first 8 games. No reason to think they're the massive favorites to go to Worlds and win the entire split again over in that region. Now we're getting in to the top 10 where there's a lot of shifting, as usually is the case. 10-6 sometimes has the smallest movement, but the big drop, one of the biggest, I think a little less than LNG, but Damwon Kia. And this, you still have them ahead of T1. Like LCK power rankings, they are neck and neck. I feel like you could go either way. They're only 3 spots separated by the global power rankings, but a loss to both Nongshim and to T1 this week. One of the reasons why you see Nongshim climbing all the way, bordering on that top 5 now. Nongshim has been more consistent than T1 and Damwon in the summer split, which is a sentence I thought I'd never say.
An unbelievable type of sentence, but this is the type of world that we live in 2021. What's happening in the
Peanuts
LCK
world, man. We're just living it.
It's Peanuts world. But what we have with Damwon at this low and how they have been trending, it's raising the alarms and the questions that people have for them that were somewhere there before MSI. I think a lot of them after MSI were maybe increased as far as the concern, and then especially the weeks after in the performance and how it's gone. This summer split, yes, when you look at around the world, there have been other struggles from other MSI attendees, sure, but not nearly to, I think, the same degree of difference in actual on-Rift performance the way that Damwon has been. And then you add in the whole roster shuffle situation and everything going on there, and then everything since going back to what we've got with the standard lineup hasn't been the same level of performance. That is the problem for Damwon.
Yeah, and you can talk about underperformances from the bot lane. Obviously, that's been the story most of the split. I feel like the last couple of weeks you haven't seen the same level out of Showmaker, which is, to be honest, 1v9 performances a lot of the times in those matches for Damwon. So every time a question is answered for them, it feels like 3 more new ones come up. But let's start talking Nongshim, because all of a sudden Damwon slumping like this, Nongshim looking as good as they have. These guys could be legit threats, not just in the regular season, for a deep playoff run.
Absolutely, the way that they have shown, and again, the questions that they have answered against their competition, against the better teams in the LCK, or the teams that are quote-unquote supposed to be the better teams. Nongshim has handled them, my man. It doesn't matter if they're stepping, through T1, through Damwon, through Gen G, all these type of teams, they're giving them the full competition, the full fight that you would expect at this level. And it's from the Nongshim Red Force and what they've been able to do. I do want to spend some time to give some credit to Rich in the top lane. I know there's a lot of criticism. I've been one to give Rich that criticism in the top lane for his performances and some inconsistencies. But in the form that they have shown in the past, month, 2 months, Rich has been a very important part of some of these games that they've been playing, whether it's holding on or getting his own advantages. So I think absolutely important to make sure that he gets some credit in what's going right for Nongshim right now.
Everything seems to be going right across the board. You can talk about that roster performing well. In between those 2 LCK squads, you got a couple of LPL boys who are sliding down, JDG and Rare Adam, both suffering some losses this week. JDG to BLG and Suning, and Rare Adam with a yikes loss to Rogue Warriors. That one hurts a little. That hurts.
Yeah, that is absolutely not the one that you're looking for on your schedule. And if you're talking JDG, well, yeah, you're looking, sure, of course, you've got those 2 losses, but there's a win in there, Eric. Oh, wait, that's a win against IG. That's not what we need to be talking about on this.
Better than V5.
List. Yes,
better than beating V5. So.
No, absolutely better than that, but still not by a ton. And that's why you find JDG and their squads falling down from the LPL.
And the last team in the 10-6 category, the highest team in the Western scene right now, their debut in the top 10, Fnatic finally climbs in, fresh off that pause-riddled game against G2. But Fnatic, I mean, if you haven't been watching the last 4 weeks of LEC, there's no question who the most dominant looking team in the LEC is. Time to give them some respect. They have almost 4 more kills per game on average than the second place team, which is Misfits. They're sitting above 19 kills a game. They have the highest damage per minute, highest Dragon and Baron percentages of any team in the LEC. Fnatic is looking clean.
The form that Fnatic has shown us enters us to a new type of question for the LEC, and one that I bet a lot of people, even the most diehard of the Fnatic faithful, were not expecting to have to deal with for the summer split. And that is the problem that you've got only a couple teams to send to Worlds. And now we can have that conversation in the LEC about the very top dogs with Fnatic, G2, Rogue, Mad Lions. Who's getting the tickets to go to Worlds? Who's not out of that group? That is going to be a fun push to the end. And really, to talk about it with our power rankings, Fnatic needs to be that front runner in that conversation for the LEC teams getting their tickets for Worlds.
Which is crazy, because coming into the split, it was kind of those other 3 teams we were just fully expecting to be the 3 to go, and maybe Fnatic has some outside chance, but people really weren't giving them that opportunity. And now you're right, it's completely flipped, and you'd be surprised if this version or this form of Fnatic didn't make Worlds.
And I got to tell you, the one thing that I bet everybody, even if you're a G2 fan and you hate Fnatic, would be okay with seeing Fnatic go to Worlds and represent the European region. I got to think a lot of you out there would love to see Upset get his chance at that international competition. One of the best ADCs that we have seen in the LEC in the last couple of years. Such a promising talent. Would love to get to see that international.
It is a minor tragedy that we've never gotten to see him at a World Championship event. This is looking like the year for him and the Fnatic boys as we slide in to the top 5 now for this week, which has been the most stable part of the power rankings, and my favorite part. It's a theme, an ongoing theme for these top 5s, is when teams around slump or have bad performances. Rare, Adam, JDG, we can talk about both sliding. That is when Gen G thrives, because they're the guys in this race just kind of slowly going about things. Other guys are sprinting past, then they triple over the hurdle ahead, fall into a ditch, and then they're waiting, and Gen G just slowly, consistently walks by.
Gen G is the perfect epitome of it's a marathon, not a sprint, my man. You can go and look so amazing, sprinting, blazing down the path, and then Gen G is going to walk by you another 30 minutes later saying, hey, we're still moving down this race, buddy. We're still going on. Steady Freddy Gen G, sure, there's been some disappointments, and especially when you talk about ending off the first round robin in the summer split for the LCK the way that they did, given how they started it. Sure, you can feel disappointed, but in the long term, you need to keep the big picture, right? The big marathon in for Gen G and how they perform, what the obvious end goal is for an international competition, for Worlds tickets. Gen G seems on pace.
Yeah, and they did bounce back from what I'm going to call a mini slump against T1 and then Damwon, and they looked good against Hanwha. They almost stole the one game that Hanwha did win, had no business really being in that game, and then the 2 wins that Gen G had were pretty convincing stomps in their favor. It's just kind of more of the same for them. Some teams falter around them, and they're able to move up, but they're not moving up as much as the defending MSI and spring LPL champions RNG. This was it. This was the series. It was against EDG, who were looking unbeatable, honestly, in the LPL. RNG comes in, 2-0s them in clean, convincing fashion. I'm going to say it's the first time in summer that we've fully seen the MSI form.
And this is where the RNG fans get to go, guys, you guys are so stupid. I can't believe that you were losing faith in RNG. Yes, these are the performances that clearly indicate why they were the spring champions, why they are the MSI champions. This is what you want to be seeing from RNG. The only thing that, again, is still going to be a consistent, and although with the answers now a little bit less of a problem or a concern, with the start that RNG had and how slow it was and the results that went against them you start looking at the schedule that they've got left. And yes, as you said, they answered with a significant victory this past week. But every match ahead of them is more or less a significant match. So they got big names ahead of them, big time problems to deal with. I got faith in the way that they have shown us in the talent. That is the big difference now compared to how they were performing just after MSI. But you better believe that it's not through the woods just yet for their RNG team.
And it's 4 series in a row now that they've been 2-0ing squads, and obviously doing it against EDG is infinitely more impressive than any of the other squads that they were doing it against. But yeah, this, I mean, across the board was a token performance from what we saw out of them in spring. Xiaohu, even though they only have 5 series wins, Xiaohu is still second overall in the league with 8 MVPs. So he's very much loving the meta right now, as are most top laners whenever you get your hands on the Gwen or Viego. Something to be absolutely disgusting on. Top eSports, they moved down a spot. They had just 1 spot. I know people might say, oh, it should be more than that. We just need to see. They're only 6-4. They have 2 less games, much like RNG, than FPX and EDG. I think FPX now this week clearly put themselves in as that second best team with the wins against TES and then a pretty dominant win today against OMG. I talked about Xiaohu. It's great. You got 8 MVPs. Well, Doin B has 10. So.
Yeah, but that's the LPL. Isn't that insane when you can talk about the way and the impact that Xiaohu has had for RNG, and then you go, yeah, but Doin B's doing B things over there for FPX. And there's even more to talk about with the LPL. We mentioned, obviously, top esports just below FPX, but look at a head-to-head matchup. That's usually the result the next week in the power rankings is that type of situation. And it is more than just Doin B's 10 MVPs right now for FPX and the way that they're playing. Nuggery coming back into the lineup, being the good Nuggery that we like to see in that top side on that coin flip. Things are good for FPX, and, well, they're going to have to be good and even maybe a little bit better if they want to be the top dog, not only in the LPL, but the global power rankings.
And the series against OMG that they had most recently was an absolute stomp, especially that game 2. They had 27 kills, just FPX, in 22 minutes. That's LPL gameplay. And your boy LWX styling on the Vayne pick, 10-0-9 on that one.
We talk about it many times. LWX popping off, being a major damage threat, not inting a couple times. That is a major difference maker for FPX, and that's when you know that they are in full-on championship contender mode. Absolutely, all threats are a go for FPX.
And I think we always talk about this with Jackie Love being this hyper-aggressive AD carry in the LPL. LWX is insanely aggressive as well if you watch any of his career highlights. So seeing him pilot the Vayne so aggressively, and listen, Vayne spotting and not dying in a game, that's a round of applause.
Yeah, look, everyone loves to talk about Uzi's Vayne, right? The big historic Vayne of the LPL. You got to remember, there were a lot of Vayne spotting Uzi games throughout the LPL. So for LWX to come through, no Vayne spotting.
Uzi doesn't have a Vayne world skin. Just saying.
Oh, them some fighting words talking about world skins without Uzi.
Just saying, LWX got his to his day and absolutely showcased why against OMG. But yeah, FPX are back to their terrifying, terrorizing selves. Number 2 on the power ranking. EDG, even though they lost that game to RNG, if any team has some leeway, it's them. So they are still sitting pretty, 10-2, atop the global power rankings for now. But that is it today for League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you guys as always. Thanks for listening, and we will catch you on the Flippity Flip.